Hello. Okay, I'm gonna stop playing so much. I'm gonna stop playing so much. But hey y'all, it's Chemistry, your blessed and highly favorite here, and today, this is episode one of my podcast called Shy but Bold Faith. Well, Shy with Bold Faith. And I think like a while ago, um, like years ago, I think I made a podcast like me and my friend Lindsay. And then I started to realize I was like, I really like, our conversations just in general, you know, really with any of my friends. And I don't want it to be just since, we talk to each other all the time and blah, 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 to start a podcast. Because it's like at this point, everybody and their mamas has started a podcast at this point. And for the longest amount of time, I've been a very talkative person. And I don't know. I've always wanted to just talk about stuff and then just share those thoughts with other people. But the thing that really caused me to decide to go ahead, and make this one mainly is due to the sole fact that I remember a while back when I first started the Kimsey versus the World podcast, and I really sat and I thought about it. I was like, what if one day I got older and I started to get more serious like about my faith, and there are specific things that I may not be able to really just talk to my friends about. What if there's some concepts that, some of my friends may be a little confused about and they may not want to talk about it or whatever the case may be. It was just like that one random thought that just like popped up in the back of my mind. So that, I wouldn't say that eventually happened, but I don't know, just the older I got, the more I realized that like God really gives people the ability to be bold within their faith and within their love for God, even when they're introverted, even when they feel like they're a weak link. And that's what really started the whole thing. Because internally I was like, man, I don't really rock with people like that. But it's like at the same time, I know that, as a Christian, even if you are introverted, you got to also spread the love of God. You have to let people know what's good. And I feel like for me, you know, being in my little town on my little computer and stuff, it's like, I don't know, it's like I've always wanted to have the ability to tell other people my own stories and share my own experiences and keep other people from making the same mistakes and things that I have. Because I don't know, it's just something I yap about all the time. But the one thing I really want more than anything is to use my life as a testimony of some sort to show people not only the power of God, but the power of really just giving everything you have to Him and just letting Him change your life for the better. Because, geez, because the whole episode I'm gonna pretty much be talking about my testimony anyways. But it's like, I don't know, it's just like I got older, and to see the immense growth it's just weird. I wouldn't say it's weird in a bad way, but it's just like, wow. It's like I look at myself in the past, and sometimes it's recognizable, but sometimes it's not as recognizable as I thought it probably would have when I was like a teenager or something. So today, we just yapping a little bit, but but yeah, but today we're gonna really take a huge deep dive into the power of testimonies, because I feel like I don't know what it is, um but it feels like nowadays People are scared to give their own testimonies and use their voice and rebuke things and people and stuff. And it's just like, what you scared of? What you scared of? Like, it's your story, you know? It's just like it's just like with Gideon, and how God was trying to get him to see, like, hey, you gonna be the one I use to save your people. And Gideon was like, me? And God was like, yeah, you. And Gideon was like, nah, I'm the weakest of my clan. I'm the weakest of my family and my clan. That's impossible. And God was like, but I make the impossible I make the impossible happen. I make the impossible possible all the time. Like, it's you. It's nobody else. I'm calling you, you of all people. And geez, it's like another it was like another incident in the Bible that really, like, I don't know, it really stuck to me a lot. Was pretty much like the story of Moses as well. Because when I was a little kid, one of my favorite movies, one of the best animated movies of all time, I don't care what nobody says, is The Prince of Egypt. And the animation and everything was beautiful, but the thing that stuck out to me the most was that Moses was pretty much in an environment where, he was raised in this environment, but there were like tiny little hints that, he was somewhere that he wasn't really meant to be or was supposed to be at. And once he discovers this and the scales are lifted off of his eyes, it's like everything just changes from there. And for me, I could relate to how, I was in specific environments or whatever the case may be, but at the same time it always felt like maybe I didn't quite belong there because some of the people weren't necessarily receptive or were very kind to me. And I was kind of confused about specific things. And sometimes I would be chewed out by it a little bit. And it was to a point where it was like God was literally calling out to Moses and was like, hey, I'm using you. You're the one that's gonna take the Israelites out of Egypt. And then Moses was like, I'm not worthy though. Me? And God is like, yeah, you. You, yeah. And Moses was like, I don't know. And then Moses was like, all right, here's your proof. Once again, you're the person that I'm asking and that I'm calling on for this to happen. And it really made me think about how it doesn't matter how, how little you feel or how, less than you feel. Um, it's like when God sees something in you specifically, um, like, geez, how do I put it? It's like when God sees something in you and he's calling on you to do a specific thing, um, you may feel like you're less than, but that doesn't mean that you are. And within the things that you do and within the things that you're called to do, uh, they make some powerful testimonies, trust. Whether you're fulfilling something, within the will that God has for your life, or even just you going through really hard times. And after all the hard times and the tests and trials, like once you get your dub, baby, that testimony gonna be lit. This all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Cause man, I love how I'm just stalling. I'm just stalling down. But I feel like for me, something I really had to realize. Um Geez, I feel like in order for me to fully explain this statement, I would have to go ahead and tell my testimony because I'm kind of stalling at this point. So this little section is gonna be long, but I'm gonna give y'all my full testimony or whatever. Yeah, but I'm gonna give y'all my full testimony. So I'm gonna start this off. Um, when I was like little. And before anybody like listens, I don't want people to think, oh, she's just trauma dumping or whatever the case may be. Like, nah. Like, at the end of the day, my past doesn't determine who I am. God determines who I am. So the past is the past. Just because the past was the way that it was, it doesn't mean that I have to still operate as if that's what it is right now when it's entirely different. So I've already talked about this on TikTok, but I'm gonna re-talk about it. So I'm gonna start this off from like my childhood. So in my childhood, um I'm gonna stop. So as you can tell, I be giggling a lot when I be nervous and stuff sometimes. But anyways, so growing up, I was diagnosed with ADHD. I was officially diagnosed with ADHD when I was little, but I didn't know about it. I didn't know about my diagnosis until I was like 13. Cause I asked my mom about it. I was like, Mom, I got a question, and like, what? I don't have like ADHD or like anything like you know going on, do I? And she was like, Yeah, you do. And I was just like, Wow. I'm like, thanks for telling me. But nah, but for real. So I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was like super, super young. And there were some things that, I was kind of like battling with, such as like social anxiety and not really knowing proper, social etiquette or like social interactions, like how stuff like that went. But the one thing that I absolutely loved, like despite that, was art. I absolutely loved art, whether it was graphics, arts and crafts, doodling. I done sat here and flicked the microphone. Whether it was arts and crafts, doodling, etc. And like around the time that I was starting school, I started to talk a little late. I think I started talking maybe around like, because I asked my mom a while back, and she said I started forming like full sentences and stuff. Um, like when I was at least 5. So I started kindergarten a little late, and I didn't really. I had friends. You know, when me and my mom pretty much like lived like in another city. So lo and behold, we moved from that city to a new city, and I thought everybody was gonna be like cool, and it wasn't. Yeah, I thought like everybody was gonna be cool, but then you had some people that immediately was making fun of like the way that I talked, and it was to a point where they consistently were asking me like, where are you from, where are you from? And I would constantly tell them like, okay, this is the city, that I was born in and that I came from. And they would mock me and say it differently like every time. And it was to a point where I kind of was just like, okay, there's really no point. But I think for me, the thing that kind of like low key shaped what like my elementary school years were like was in the original city that me and my mom stayed in. There was this incident where there was an elementary school teacher, And I don't remember why she did what she did. I promise you I don't remember it. I don't remember why. But all I remember was that she was upset with me enough to lay me flat on a table. And it was like, the table was like, it was like a curvy, like it was shaped like an art palette with legs, and it was wooden. And she laid me on the table and she sat on my stomach. Like, she full-fledged sat on my stomach. And I didn't know what to do in this situation because I'm just like, okay, this lady just told me to sit on the table and she sit on my stomach. So I don't know what to do. And at this point, it's getting to a point of where I feel like I'm finna throw up. I'm finna hurl. So it got to a point of where I just bit the lady thumb. And she was like, yeah, you're done. So in the aftermath, I ended up getting suspended for like 3 days from school. I got whooped. I got whooped. And I was immediately moved to another classroom as I was deemed as like a disturbance to the learning environment. So, we're gonna fast forward to this point now. Still in elementary school, but pretty much like at a brand new school. And from first grade to like possibly the fourth grade, first to fourth grade, here and there, I'm experiencing like bullying here and there. Like, I absolutely still have friends and stuff, but I'm experiencing like minor amounts of bullying at this point. And I'll never forget, this was like in the fourth grade, I believe, where one of my classmates pretty much told me that one of my friends said to him, I guess, that, oh, your friend such and such said that she doesn't want to be friends with you anymore because she thinks you're weird and you talk too much. And internally, I kind of was like, that's very hurtful, but I didn't hear it from her mouth, so I don't know. And then I would kind of linger around and befriend people that were like very questionable. And it was to a point where like some of the people, kind of treated me like I was slow. And I'll never forget, it was in the fourth grade. And I think it was my math teacher, I believe. I had to have been maybe in the fourth or fifth grade. I'm not sure. It was one of those grades. I believe I was in the fourth grade. And my teacher was pretty much asking everybody questions about rounding. So she gets to me, right? And she asks me, she's like, hey, what's the answer to this? And I tell her what I think the answer is. And she's like, no, what's the answer? And I was like, I kind of just told you what the answer was. And she accuses me of being a class clown. And I've never been one to be a class clown at all. Like, I was being dead serious. And it was to a point of where this woman literally tells me to go to the principal's office. So then I go to the principal's office and I explain to them why I was brought to the principal's office. And then they said, that's the dumbest reason to send somebody to the principal's office. And then they send me back to the classroom. The teacher sends me back to the principal's office. I get told to go back to the classroom. And then I'm being told to sit outside the classroom. And everybody's just laughing at me. And I'm just like, I don't really understand why I was told to go to the principal's office. And I just answered a simple question. So, so, so it didn't make any sense. It just didn't make any sense to me. So it got to a point of where, some of the bullying that I did experience in elementary school was a little frustrated. And then I think one of the first experiences of like spiritual warfare that I like started to like experience as a kid was like, I'll never forget when me and my mom were staying with my granddad at the time. And my granddad had this gun in his drawer in his room. And I had went in it and I had held it. And then I had heard a random voice. And it was like, oh, no one loves you, no one cares about you, you might as well just off yourself and da da da. And I pretty much was just staring at the gun. And I was scared. I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna put this back in the drawer. Like, I don't know what that's about, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm putting the gun back in the drawer. So we're gonna fast forward to when I was about like 6 or 7, because this is where stuff gets, real bad. So, lo and behold, so I think I was around, yeah, I was, so in between the ages of like 6 to 9, I don't even know why I had to take a little bit of a deep breath. So I'm gonna tell y'all in advance. This is a trigger warning. So for anybody that is like super sensitive to like sexual abuse and stuff like that, you might wanna close your ears and kind of click off. So I'm gonna just tell y'all in advance. So in between the ages of like 6 to 9, yeah, it was at least 6 to 9. Uh, excuse me. I was molested and SA'd by multiple relatives, by multiple family members. Like, and I never told anyone about it until I was like 18. Like, that was when I finally got the courage to like speak about it. And before I even spoke about it, I remember it was one incident where, and it wasn't just once, it was multiple times. It was multiple times. Because I remember there would be days where I would consistently try to forget what happened to me, to the point of where I picked up a real nasty habit known as maladaptive daydreaming. And I would daydream about these weird, I would daydream about these super weird, like, scenarios of like being in relationships with, like, I don't know, like fake people and stuff like that, to kind of like escape from the reality of like what was happening. Like, it was one time where my mom actually caught me in the middle of maladaptive. She caught me in the middle of me daydreaming one time. I was playing K-pop on my MP3 player, and she caught me, and it was a jump scare. Like, it was wild. It was ridiculous. And there were so many times where, like, through maladaptive daydreaming and other things, where I attempted, ooh, hold on. Yeah, there was like a lot of times where I repeatedly was trying to like push those memories in the back of my mind and failed, because the memories of those incidences would play repeatedly in the back of my mind over and over and over and over and over and over. Like, it was so bad. Um, it was so bad. It was to a point of where, mm, it was to a point of where I didn't want to be around, um I didn't want to be around like a lot of people, especially one of the people that did that to me. And it got to a point of where it felt like I was kind of forced to like deal with this person like for a very long time. And when I finally spoke up about it when I was 18, yeah, I was like 18. And it was like, man, it was the summer. And a part of me was like, I'm scared to tell my parents, because if I tell them, what's gonna happen? Are they gonna believe me? Am I going to be, listened to or heard? Because an ongoing thing, throughout my childhood, especially like my teenage years, is, I was being picked on at school. I was being, you know, kind of misunderstood by people, for the dumbest stuff. Like there were moments where there were like whole rumors of specific things that I didn't do. And everybody was just hell bent on being okay with these things being said. Like, I'll never forget there was like one rumor that somebody started that I was dating someone that I was friends with. And I had told him, I was like, hey, I could just tell other people that we're not dating, right? Like I don't mind at all. And dude was like, no, I'd rather us just not talk or say anything. And it was really weird because he eventually went on to befriend somebody that didn't really like me that much, like at all. But that's still like his decision. Like that ain't really got nothing to do with me, but still. And that broke my heart because, it just felt like for a while that nobody else had to prove themselves. But when it came to me, it felt like I always had to prove to other people how good of a person I was or how I deserved to be listened to and so forth. It just felt like I had to consistently prove myself in in some shape, form, fashion, or capacity. And yeah, but when I finally told my parents, I finally mustered up the courage to tell them, and I was nervous. At one point, I was having an anxiety attack, um, pertaining to the thought of like telling them. So when I did tell them, um, mm, like, um, they were pretty, they were pretty receptive, you know, to like listening to me. But I thought that was like, oh, well, like, yeah, I told him I'm free. Like, no, that was just a half of it. That was literally just a half of it because there were things I thought that by like telling them, I would be free of like all the things that I had to deal with pertaining to my trauma. But it wasn't because like literally in high school, I was like suppressing it in very dangerous ways. Like I was doing self-harm. I was struggling with hypersexuality. I was struggling with, my sexuality at one point. Like it was a hot mess. And then once I was an adult, um like I was jumping from like relationship to relationship, because like all I really wanted was to feel genuine love because of the sole fact that because of that trauma that happened to me, it made me feel like the only worth I ever had was if I was doing something for the other person or if I was being used by the person that quote unquote loved me or whatever the case may be. And it wasn't until I officially came back to God when I was at least 23. Yeah, like 23 when I came back to God. And excuse me. And it was a really lengthy process. It was a really, really, really lengthy process because I think the seed really started to be planted when I was like 18 because around the time that I was 18, man, this was at least mm, no, I was 20. Actually, correction, I was 20. This was like 2 years after I told my parents, and I was still kind of moving. I was still moving crazy out here. And mm, so I didn't know what I wanted to do, like in life or just in general, because I was vibing. Like it was so bad that I couldn't even see myself having like a career or knowing what I really wanted to do outside of like high school. Like I couldn't even see myself making it past 17. Like that's how messed up, you know, the trauma of what happened to me. That's how bad, I was out here. Like I kind of just didn't care. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was just vibing. It was kind of like a, if I made it, I made it. If I didn't, I didn't. Like that's the mindset I kind of had at the time. And I think it was like I was 19 and it happened super random. I was just chilling and I was chilling in my programming class when I was going to school. I was going to school at a community college, like a few, like pretty much like 2-3 hours away from like my hometown, and well, pretty much where I was like raised. And I was just walking. Oh, excuse me. And lo and behold, it was like a whoosh. It was like a wind just hit me out of nowhere, and I was like having like random like flashbacks and stuff to like me liking arts and crafts and stuff. Because mind you, like days prior, maybe like a week or so before, I was crying. And I was like, I wouldn't say I was crying, I was like frustrated. And I was just like, I don't know what I want to do. I'm kind of just sitting here, and I'm a computer science major at the time. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I feel lost. I'm confused. I feel like I'm wasting my time. I don't know what I want to do. And next thing you know, days later, I'm having flashbacks and stuff of like me being super interested in art, me being super interested in graphics, and so forth. And next thing you know, I was like, wow, you sure right. And at the time, I didn't realize it was God. I thought it was just, a quote unquote intuition type thing. And once I realized that the thing that I really wanted to do was like art, specifically graphic design, I think it was like either, I think it was either the next day or the day after. Because I think the next day, I pretty much went to my programming teacher's classroom, I believe, pretty much for like tutoring because I was a little confused because I kept messing up on the syntax errors and stuff. So I think it had to have been the day after that where I changed my major. Then like a few weeks later, I went ahead and just dropped the programming class like as a whole because I flunked it. I was really sad though because I really liked that class. But I changed my major, and my peoples, they was not too happy about that because computer science was where the money is at. Yeah. So it was crazy. It was so crazy because mm, so that was when I was 19. So when I was 20, I went ahead and decided to major, like I pretty much, I'm majoring in graphic design now, so I just decided to go ahead and start my freelance business. And that low key was a wild idea because I didn't really have a lot of graphic design experience. But yeah, it was crazy because my bad. Yeah, and it was crazy because when I officially came back to God, like I officially came back to Jesus when I was like 23. Um, I think like around that time period, Jesus was really calling me out, about a lot of stuff. Like, cause it was like one day I was chilling and yeah, I was chilling. I was just talking to my boyfriend, and the next thing you know, once again, the whoosh thing happened, and it was just flashbacks of decisions that I made and how those decisions affected people. And it felt like I just heard, you know, it just felt like I heard God say, you really need to be more responsible for the things that you do, because you don't want people to do you this way, so you shouldn't do people the wrong way. Because yeah, like I wasn't being self-aware like at all. And then I went to church um around the time I was like 20, like 22, 23. I went back to church, and one of my church members gave like a sermon about like not letting your heart wax cold for God. And I think the chapter that he was preaching from, I think was Matthew chapter 28, I believe. It was like Matthew 20, no, Matthew 18. As a matter of fact, hold on. Let me, hold on. Okay, I'm tripping. It was Matthew 24. It was Matthew 24. And it started, like, I think it started, it was this one part specifically. Hold on. Cause I'm looking at the Bible online right now. So it it was actually, it was verse 12, Matthew 24:12, where it said, and because of iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. And I forgot pretty much how he said it, but pretty much he was like, you don't want, the ways of the world to cause your heart to wax cold for God, and also cause the love in your heart, you know, you let what people are doing cause you to harden your heart. Because in order for you to show the love of God to other people and so forth, you have to have love in your heart. You can't walk around with a hard heart and think that you gonna lead somebody to God and your heart is stone cold and you mean and nasty and all this other stuff like this. That ain't how they work. And it's like when I saw that scripture, I don't know, it just caused me to feel really bad. I felt convicted about that. And I was just like, wow, um, I'm not being as genuine as a Christian I'm not being as genuine of a Christian as I thought, that I was. I'm not being genuine. And that, I don't know, it wasn't a good feeling. It broke my heart. And like I officially came back to God after that. And it's like, don't get me wrong, like I still struggle with stuff here and there, but I do not regret coming back, point blank, period. But the thing that I found crazy was around the time that I came back to God. This was around the time that I officially, man, because I was cosplaying on and off from 2014 to 2022 for about like 9 years. And it felt like God was calling me to go ahead and just, hang up the whole cosplay thing and kind of just focus on other endeavors, like focus on your business, focus on, your content creating stuff, just do something else. And I didn't understand why at the time, but it's like I got older and I kind of realized it. Because so it was one day I was just chilling, and lo and behold, I just got curious for whatever reason. I looked at my old email. I looked at my super old email that I made in high school. And there was an email there was an email that I wrote in October of 2013. And I was a junior. I was a junior at the time. And man, So I was in my desktop publishing class, and the prompt was that, what are you going to do in the next 5 to 10 years? Like, where do you see yourself being? Like, write this as if this is you in the future, right? So, I'm sorry, it's just every time I think about it, I don't know, I be getting, I be getting hype. Yeah, but hold on, I'm trying to pull it up now. So, yeah, so I wrote this on Tuesday, October the 22nd of 2013 at 2:20 p.m. And it was on a Tuesday. And this was my answer. This was my full-blown answer. I wrote this when I was 15. And I said, honestly, I'm majoring in arts and design, and I've been designing documents, PowerPoints, and other files for years now, and I believe that this is what I want to do. It's hard work, but it takes the boredom and imagination and turns it into something cool. And mind you, the prompt was that the prompt was just asking us, where would we be in a decade? That was when I was 15. I'm 26, and I've been a freelance graphic designer for over 6 years. I was showed in tiny little flashbacks and was told that this was the thing that I was going to do when I got older. And man, it's just like, I don't know, it's just like to think, I don't know, to think about that, it just overwhelms me in a good way because for me, I feel like it's the testament to the power of God because when other people cast you out or the devil will use your trauma to make you feel less than or not good enough to the point of where you feel like nothing, you know, good will ever come from you or that you'll never be successful. It's like what the devil meant for evil, God will always use for your good every single time. It's just like in the book of Joel where it says, that everything you lost, will be restored. And I don't know, it feels like a full circle. And I feel like I don't know, it's like for me, the thing that will really change people's lives is your testimony. And I feel like the devil, he's such a loser. But on top of that, something that the devil doesn't want people to know and to understand is that the reason why, God calls us to do specific things and to read the word and apply it to our lives as well is that growing, growing within our faith and growing in our walk with God helps us to not only be Christ-like, but it helps us to combat all the stuff that the devil or Tinky will attempt to use, to try to get us to fall into temptation or to get us to act out of character or to steer us in the wrong direction. Long story short, because there's been a lot of times where, geez, like prime example, like um one of the issues that I used to have like a lot and that I prayed about a lot because I still struggle with stuff even now. I'm not gonna hold you, but one of the things I would struggle with is like patience. I would struggle really bad with patience because low key nobody was really like as patient with me. So internally I was like, oh, since everybody's rushing me or whatever the case may be, I'm going to do that right back to them. And over time I had to realize, I'm like, okay, well, there's some moments where people are not going to be able to do stuff at a specific time, because what if they have something planned, or or so forth. So it's like you have to have patience, because sometimes some things aren't going to happen when you want them to. But when they do happen, when they're supposed to, you'll be happy and you'll understand why they happened when they happened. Because, like, prime example, I was praying for patience, right? I was praying for patience, right? So, around the time I was praying for patience, tell me why. Tell me why my graduation from college was like delayed for like literally almost two whole years. But it was a good thing, because if I would have graduated at the time that I felt like I was supposed to graduate, which was like in 2021, I would not have been prepared at all. I wouldn't have been prepared at all. Like, I'm talking, I wouldn't have had I wouldn't have had a internship. I wouldn't have had any understanding of like anything. And then also, with me, graduating around the time that I did, graduating from college around the time that I did, it also taught me that just because God doesn't make something happen the very moment you want it to happen, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It just means that God is preparing it for you. But as He's preparing it for you, He needs you to fix something in the process. And He needs you, you know, to be receptive to the journey. Because within the journey, we learn a lot of stuff and we grow and we become better. So it's like, in a lot of ways, growth is a part of your testimony as well, because you're alive to tell, you know, things that have changed about you, blessings that you received, better understandings that you have compared to like, understandings that you used to have, and so on. And geez, so pertaining to the title, um, your testimony breaks chains in a lot of ways. Because, like, prime example, let's just say there's somebody that they used to like do witchcraft and stuff like that. So within their experience within doing these things, and then God removing the scale from their eyes to understand what it is that they're actually doing, not only does that testimony expose what Tinky really, you know, be having the girlies doing, but it also proves that God is exactly who He says He is. Every single time. That He would never do anything to hurt us. Like, ever. Like, the only things technically He'll literally do to quote unquote hurt us is to allow the things, allow us to get the things that we want if we beg for it, in order to get us to understand that the things that we want sometimes really is not the things that we need. Like, He'll literally let you understand it for yourself if you're trying to rush Him and you're trying to force His hand. Because at the end of the day, nobody can force His hand. Like, He'll let you learn your lesson and let you have what you want, so you can see and understand and realize, okay, this may not be what I think that I wanted the whole time, because that's happened to me before, where I have been in relationships with people where I was sitting and I was praying, and praying with snot bubbles running down my nose, like, ooh, God, please let this person be okay. but the whole time, that person that person I was dating was the ops the whole time. Like, literally. So it's just like your testimony. I don't know. It's just I guess one way that I can put it is your testimony is like, like those megaphones where people be at the football games and they be like, hooray, like that. Your testimony has way more power than you think that it does. And what the devil will do is he'll attempt to silence you and to get other people to shame you and to bully you and to make fun of you so that you don't say that out loud. Because when you say it out loud, you not only expose his business and what he's about, but you also expose the reality that God is literally who he says he is. And the devil does not want that exposed. He does not want that known by like anybody. He wants people to be bamboozled and to believe that God is this big meanie bobini, and he's not mean at all. He's not mean at all. The only reason why people say that God is mean is because God won't let people do whatever they want. And meanwhile, they don't understand that the reason why God doesn't let us do whatever we want is because sometimes, in a good portion of the time, really a lot of the time, the things that we think that we want sometimes will lead us to our own self-destruction. Every single time. Every single time. So your testimony is strong. Like a testimony is pretty much like a statement. Like, for example, like I think like in a lot of like law shows and so forth, like what they call it, like an alibi, sort of. Like your testimony is kind of like your alibi, like it's your statement. Like it's your voice, right? And your testimony, pretty much your growth is a part of your testimony because it also breaks cycles. Because like especially if you have like specific issues or whatever the case may be in your family, like for example, let's just say your family has really bad communication issues due to like histories or like cycles of domestic violence or abuse or whatever the case may be. So your testimony of growing and learning how to communicate with others better and so on will also change other people's lives to where it will cause them to think about, am I properly communicating with other people? Am I properly doing specific things that God is, calling me to do and so forth? And it will cause people to really evaluate a lot of things about their own life, and it will cause them to want to, take their life back. You know how like that song goes, I forgot. How am I gonna talk about what's the name of that song and then I forgot it? Um it was like the one part of the song where it was like, take back what the devil stole from me. It's like through your testimony and your growth, you're taking back all of the things that were stolen from you. You're taking back your voice, your power, the power that God gave you, the authority that God gave you, your joy, your peace. You're taking those things back, right? So, because for a very long time, I think I was allowing my trauma to cause me to silence myself, right? And it was to a point where a lot of times people would pick with me, it would bully me, and would make fun of me to the point of where I felt ashamed to, to like the things that I would like or to talk about the things that I would talk about or whatever the case may be. And then I got older And I realized that even though I'm shy, even though, I be struggling with social anxiety a bit and so on, it's like, it's so much power in just opening your mouth and just professing that Jesus is Lord and how he's made such an impact in your life through the things that you've experienced and through all of the trials and tribulations that you made it through. Like, one example that I don't know, one example that I like to think about is like Jeremiah, for example, like the book of Jeremiah, and how literally God, Jeremiah was a little nervous. He was like, I don't know, man. And he was like, I don't know, man. And God was like, I know the plans that I have for you, not nobody else, you. Like, I know the hairs that grow in your head. I knew you when you were forming in your mother's womb. And it was to a point of where, God was instructing Jeremiah to do specific things and write specific things in scrolls. And it was to a point of where Jeremiah had to tell, I believe it was King Hezekiah. Yeah, I believe it was. But Jeremiah was telling the king of Judah, like, hey, you need to repent before the Babylonians come and snatch all up. And the king was like, no, as a matter of fact, you're going to jail. So Jeremiah was put in jail. He literally was just thrown in jail. And it was crazy because not only did the king not repent, but the Babylonians snatched them up exactly like Jeremiah said. And Jeremiah was freed from jail. So it's kind of just like, in a way, um people will also try to like silence you or stop you from telling a testimony or from telling the truth about specific things through trying to belittle your testimony or belittle what you're saying. And geez, it's just it's so important. It's so important to not be afraid to speak up. Because at the end of the day, it's your testimony. It's your testimony. It's your life. Nobody knows fully what you have gone through except for God. You should never, ever, ever, you know, you should never let the devil or anybody cause you to be so scared to say out of your own mouth that, hey, this is who I am. This is what I've gone through, but what I've gone through and who I used to be, that's not who I am now. That's not my identity. My identity is not based on my trauma. My identity is based in who God says I am. And my testimony is just proof of that. It's a living testament to the power of God. Because look at everything that I've been through, and look at how much I've grown and how far I came. Because, sheesh, because I went from being sexually abused, like pretty much being touched on inappropriately multiple times by relatives, to pretty much struggling with my own like sexuality, hypersexuality, like self-harm, suicidal, like, suicidal tendencies and so forth, um, as a teenager, and being in like super unwise like relationships and so on, to and really not even having an idea of like what I wanted to do in life. I to like getting older and having much more peace about life. And it feels like within my walk with God, it feels like God, started to, I don't know, not started, but it's like it felt like God was breathing life into me again, because it felt like the trauma and everything that I experienced and how people treated me, it felt like it was draining me little by little, to where it felt like I had nothing to live for, until it felt like God came to me and was like, "You have a lot to live for. Don't give up. I'm right here." Just like one of my favorite scriptures that I used to say it all the time. Um, it was, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and of a sound mind." And I, it got to a point where sometimes, whenever I used to have like really bad flare ups and like anxiety attacks and so on, I would put my hand on my chest and I would quote that like all the time. But now I'm just out here reading I'm just out here reading Psalms and Proverbs and Ecclesiastes and stuff, because now one of my favorite scriptures that I like to read, like one of my favorite scriptures just in general, is like Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verses 1 through 7, about how it's a time and a place for everything. And that's just how it is, even with testimonies. Like, even though, like I said repeatedly, like testimonies, like your testimony has the ability, it has power, it has that oomph, like it has the ability to break generational curses in spiritual chains that, that tries to bind you to stuff, or that, tries to keep you trapped to stuff. um Another thing that, how did I like, another thing that testimonies will do, man. Oh yeah, okay, so not only does your testimony like hold power, and it pretty much breaks, those spiritual chains that the enemy tries to like keep you attached to, like the stuff that he tries to keep you attached to, but also, man, it's like, mm, your it's like your testimony serves, as like your motivation, because, like, not only just your motivation, but also, it serves as like, as like the why of your faith. So what I mean by the why is like, it's something I like to do, like to talk about even in like graphic design, because I feel like within everything you do there's a why. And for me especially, you have some people that's like, "Oh, why do you believe in God?" and do and blah blah blah. And it's like, for me, my why is all throughout my testimony. Like, the reason why I believe in God is because when I didn't really want to be here anymore, God was the person that kept me grounded to reality. He was the person that was breathing life into me, to where he revealed to me the thing that I was going to do in my adulthood, when I was just like 18, 19. I believe in God because when I was anxious and I was having nervous breakdowns and stuff. He was right there protecting me. And I didn't even realize it. It's just like for me, um, within the tough times and within the experiences that I've had, the reason why I believe in God as strongly as I do, because God is who he says he is. When he makes a promise, he makes it. Like, just point blank, period. And all he really be wanting is for us to have a relationship with him and to be serious about that relationship. Like, yeah, like we all fell short of the glory of God and we gonna struggle with stuff, but the goal should always be to strive to be better and to do better and to listen to him. Because he wants the best for us. He wants us to thrive, he wants us to shine, but he wants us to do it the right way. So for me, um, the reason why I believe in God is is my testimony. My testimony, like that's my why. That's the reason why I believe in God as strongly as I do. Because of the amounts of spiritual warfare I've experienced, because of the times that I've been blessed. You know, despite the good and the bad, he's been there. So, yeah, it's like your testimony, is powerful because not only is it your why, as of why you believe in God, but you know, it's also that megaphone to let people know, like, hey, I experienced that thing that you've experienced. I've also experienced it as well. We can talk about it, we can chat about it, and so on. And within your testimony, you're also using your life to show people that, hey, you may not believe in God, but let me share with you, you know, let me share with you this so that you don't have as many doubts anymore about specific things. So I don't know. It's like, yeah, that's just how I see it. That's just how I see it. Because for the longest amount of time, as somebody that would struggle with like anxiety really bad, and it got to a point where I had to learn how to do stuff scared. Um, it's like your testimony, even when you're scared, your testimony exudes it exudes bravery, because you have people right now that that have had testimonies, that have had really bad experiences, and they're not quite comfortable with telling that yet, and they may struggle with some of the same things and they don't know how to go about it. So so yeah, it's just like, I guess with this first episode I want to say that whether you tell your testimony publicly or you keep it within and you just talk about it with friends or just strangers off the internet or whatever the case may be, um, I want you to hear me when I say this. You may not think that your life experiences or your testimony means much, but it means a lot. It means a lot because and I'm not just saying that just to say it. It's because every single one of us, um, in the body of Christ, whether you've been in the church for like decades or whether you just became a Christian, our testimonies are unique because all of our experiences are different, but it still is a living testament to the power of God and a living testament to the fact that you are here and that God is blessing you to be here and to be here with us. And it shows your growth. It shows, man, it shows your growth. It shows your character. It shows your fruit. Because, like it says, like in Matthew chapter 7, verses, 15 through 20, you'll know them by their fruit. Like, it's like your testimony echoes your character. And it echoes the true character of who God is and how much He cares for all of us. So, yeah. But, like, but all right, y'all. This has been the first episode of the Shy with Bold Faith podcast. This is chemistry. Um, Geez. I mean, if you want to, it's up to you. It's up to you 100%. I mean, you can comment down, share your testimonies, things of that nature. Or, just anything. Like, what things would you like for me to talk about next? Or, whatever the case may be. But aside from that, I'll see you guys in the next video. All right. Bye, guys.